Well, hello there, and welcome back to my blog. By popular request, I'm giving you my own lane changer story, or at least a part of it, and it's called Celia Chandler, Shoulder Checker. This year I was honored to interview 25 lane changers. Last Sunday I brunched with a handful of them. You can thank or blame them for today's post, because they encouraged me to write about my own lane changes. Truth is, I've written weekly about my lane changes for nearly 5 years. They're summarized at the bottom of the post if you go to my website, and you can find links to prior blogs in case you missed them. When interviewing my lane changer subjects, I ended each interview with a few more reflective questions, and this week I posed those same questions to myself. First question: what emboldened you to make the changes you made? The inspiration for wanting to change, and maybe the genetic need to do so, comes from my father, for whom anything seemed possible. But as a white, middle-class, able-bodied, cisgender native speaker of English, most things were possible, and because of that, his lane changes were all voluntary. He chose to emigrate from his country of origin to Canada and then moved from one interest to another throughout his adult life without fear or regret. It was easy, and it all worked out. Perhaps the source of the boldness, though, was actually my mother. Her involuntary lane changes of first moving to Canada with her family and eventually to Wingham's Snowbelt, always a source of stress for her, and then later the big shifts involving widowhood and becoming elderly, were all met with the attitude common of English women of her generation. Well, you have to. When making voluntary lane changes, like selling the house Dad built for their retirement and moving into the retirement home, she did so with a great deal of planning and organization. I inherited that cautious approach to lane changing. Like her, my lane changes are prefaced by a long period of monitoring traffic, checking all the mirrors, looking over my shoulder a couple of times, putting my turn signal on, and finally moving over confidently, knowing with all that prep, it'll work out. Mom prepared for her boldest voluntary step, her decision to take the off-ramp from life's highway, in ways that only became obvious in the days leading up to her death. She even favored a date early in August, so we'd have time to get her unit cleaned out before month's end to allow someone else to move in sooner. Her pre-death organization and her determination to become a cess for maid will inspire me until the end of my own days, in my lane changing and otherwise. Second question: how did others in your life respond to your shifts? Most of the women I've interviewed reported finding support they needed for smooth transitions, although many noted their parents had some difficulty accepting the non-linear nature of their lives. It must be tough to see children give up lives that seem to work and make sense for others, but that bring uncertainty that often comes with lane changing. Not so for me. My parents' hands-off approach to my life often seemed unmooring or even uncaring, but it certainly gave me freedom to do as I wished without disappointing them. Over the years, my friends have been more actively encouraging, although surprisingly many are troubled by me no longer doing the things I used to do. Well, one day you'll play cello again, they say. Maybe, probably not. I've already done it. Giving up my law license, too, made some antsy. Truth is, if I really need to practice law again, I can get the license back. But all my lanes are one way. I'd never back up on the highway. Third question: what surprises resulted from your lane changes? My shifts have been so well planned and signaled with active shoulder checking, there hasn't been much room for unexpected outcomes. That said, despite always moving forward on that one-way highway, I do often leave breadcrumbs back to the previous lane. Returning from law school, though, is the only time I've ever used that breadcrumb trail. I'll be honest, I was bluer than I'd ever been while driving those 4,400 kilometers from Victoria to Toronto, and for the first few months home in Ontario. That was not such a good surprise. Other changes have brought wonderful surprises. Even though my love affair with Jack ended decades too soon, it brought me to Weston, a community so far north of St. Clair I couldn't have imagined being happy here. Now I cannot imagine leaving. But Jack brought even more surprises. I inherited friendships with Jack's kids and grandkids. I became a confident cook and host, and I learned that my skills of advocacy and organization are perhaps more critical to caregiving than the bum wiping and brow mopping skills I don't have. Next question. If you had to do it all over again, would you? Of course. Even the turmoil I experienced during Jack's illness and death meant I also benefited from our love. If his cancer and medically assisted death were unavoidable, then I'm glad I had a chance to learn so much from that experience too. Last question. Do you think you'll make another lane change? Nearly all my lane changer subjects have said likely, but not me. I always view my lane as permanent. Professions, homes, friends, interests, etc. Until I don't. And then, like a bullet, I find a new lane and make a clear path to safely insert myself into it. It's just how I roll. I'll continue looking for lane changes for future profiles. For now, though, I'm hanging up my interview notebook and getting back to more focused attention on my book called, you guessed it, Lane Change. Stay tuned.